Will you ride with me? Yeah. Will you ride with me? Yeah. That's going to be our next chant in the next 49 days. Okay. So good morning, everybody. My name is Marantes, and we're going to do a training now on public narrative. But before we get started, I'd like to tell you a little about my story. Okay. My story starts with my grandfather. My grandfather our family is from Cuba, 90 miles away from Miami. And my family, in 1960, when they heard the news of the revolution, they were excited. Everybody was excited. We were going to we have change now. Hope and change was going to come to Cuba. And we were going to see some real opportunity come to Cuba. But as times changed, some folks really benefited. A lot of folks didn't benefit. My family was one of them. And when my grandfather said, after 10 years of being here, I want to go. I want to do something else with my life and my family. He applied to leave. About a week later, he was picked up at his house by some military, put in a bus, and 15 buses went from Havana all the way to Camagüey, which is on the east side of the island. And he was put in a labor camp for about a year. And in that labor camp, he was a very charismatic dude, very happy guy. I look up to him. But my grandfather just couldn't stand from being away from his family. Has anybody felt that way before? And he said, I got to do something. And so one day he just, while working the field, cortando caña, cutting the sugar cane, he said, he just went crazy. He just went crazy. And he did an insane act, and he kept it for 9 months, acting insane. It got him to go back to a mental hospital that he had to be out of to be next to his family. And after that insane act, and you have to understand, it's the Cuban Revolution. It's like, you don't lie in Cuba, right? You don't get caught in this. And my grandfather, I had to ask him a lot of permission to tell you this story, because he's afraid that there are people who are still acting insane in Cuba now. All this to say, he got away. And of course, he had to leave being called a gusano, a worm. And I start with that story because my grandfather really, I believe in that value. I fight for what I need in my life, even if I gotta go crazy, I'll fight for that. And so I grew up, as a young kid in Miami, and thanks to him and his work, I had the privileges of being able to go to school and being able to have a good time. I grew up in an evangelical church, Hispanic evangelical church. That's pretty much a church with convents and prerogatives. And it was great, it was really exciting, and I was a little kid, and man, I was so excited about Jesus and the church. It was just a big part of my life, and I really connected with that. And one day, I was told, all right, guys, we're going to have a prophet come to the church. Like, oh my God, a prophet. I didn't know what a prophet was. So the service goes on, and then at the end, the prophet comes, and he says, all right, anybody in the room who has a calling, I'd like you to come to the front right now. If you have a calling right now for God, come to the front. And I'm there, oh my God, do I have a calling? I don't know if I have a calling. I want to do this so bad. I don't know if I have a calling. I'm not sure. And as soon as I thought those words, and if you're not sure if you have a calling, and you're sitting in your seat right now shaking, not knowing if you have a calling, please come to the front right now. And I'm like, this guy's a prophet. So I walk to the front, he read my mind. I come to the front, little pudgy kid looking up, sweating. And he's praying for everybody, and he comes to me, he puts his hand on my head, and he says, whoa, I see you helping people in Latin America all over the world. I see you helping your people. And one day when you get old, you're going to start a little church one day, and that's how you're going to live the rest of your life. And of course, I'm 12, and I'm looking at this guy, and I just heard this awesome news, and in my faith and in my tradition, there's only one thing you can do when that happens. And that's pretty much you fall to the floor, and you start shaking around, and you feel great. So it's like, wow, I just got the future told to me. And I kept that with me. And all of us go when we get older, we have questions around faith, and there's a lot of stuff around that. But for me, I always held that as a guidepost, a lighthouse. And if I'm ever lost, I know I have that to go towards. I had a chance to go to college, and when I went to college, that was my migration story. I went from Miami all the way to Connecticut. Whew. And they're cold, and I'm there with my guayabera, you know, you need to get like a jacket, because it was real cold. And then I met my friend, Pacho. And he's a Colombian guy. Walk like me, talk like me. You know, I thought, man, this guy like my brother. There's only one thing he didn't have like me, that he was undocumented. And I didn't know what that meant at the time. I'm like, what do you mean you're undocumented? And if you know any Cubans, like, we're like, whoa, that's impossible. You gotta get it done. No. Like, what we gotta do? And he's like, no, man, I can't do anything. You know, there's no pathway for me. And I'm like, no, man, come on, bro. You know, get married. And like, no, I can't even get married. Like, I'll marry you. Let's get this done. You know what I mean? It's like, no, legally you can't do that. And I'm like, man, I'm embarrassed. I said that right now. And so through him and through his family, I connected with this issue of being undocumented, and it was just seeing a mirror of myself and seeing that with everybody else. I became very passionate about access to college for Latinos. And when I graduated, I became a community advisor at a local community college. The center was called the Educational Opportunity Center. And every day, we had, you know, immigrants in Little Havana, Miami, would come in and say, hey, you know, I want to go to college, I want to do this. And some folks we helped. And then you have lawyers, doctors, veterinarians come in, and of course, if you're from Latin America, your degree is on this wall, right? They're like, look what I've done. Look at all my degrees. Can I do something here? They're like, no, I'm sorry, you have to do 3 years of English, and then you have to get started all over again, and half of your credits won't even count. And it was so demoralizing. And how am I telling this to somebody? How do I work at the Opportunity Center when I have to tell people bad news? There was one young woman, Peruvian family that came. Mom and daughter came. And I was busy with another client, so they went to my colleague. Once my client left, I was overhearing the conversation. And they were filling out the college application. Everything was good. They said, all right, guys, now we're going to fill out your FAFSA. Anybody heard of that FAFSA? Mixed siblings, right? And the family's like, okay, cool. It's like, okay, now I need your social security number. Now here the colleague, the family just froze. They're like, no, we don't have that. We don't have those papeles. We don't, you know, this is the opportunity. What do we do? And my colleague, I've never seen this before, he stood up and said, wait a second. You're an illegal? You're an illegal? Why did you waste my time? And he grabs their paperwork, and I do not lie, and rips it, throws it in the trash can. And I stand up, I'm boiling. I'm like, I cannot believe I saw that. And I ran after her, I gave her my card, I said, I believe in miracles. And if you want to go to college, you can. And I ran back, and I gave that guy a piece of my mind, and my boss had to hold me back. And that day, I put my 2 weeks notice. And I took a job as an organizer. And I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't fill out no more paperwork. I need to be a community organizer. And I got to fight for these young people, these undocumented youth. And so I became an organizer. My students working for Equal Rights down in Florida. And I met these 4 kids, Gabby Pacheco, Juan Rodriguez, Felipe Matos, and Carlos Roa. Now, I don't know if you know these kids, but if you read the New York Times on January 1st, those are the 4 kids that are walking from Miami to Washington, D.C. And we started in a living room, and we grew that organization, led by undocumented youth. And we said when this day came, and we heard, we believed in the hope and change. But when we saw the hope and change wasn't going to come through, and then we were saying, well, hey, let's just do more phone numbers and faxes. And we said, that's not enough either. These kids said, we're going to walk. And now I'm asking all of you, are you going to walk? Yes. Are you going to get on that bus? Are you going to take this ride to D.C.? Are you going to go and join those walkers? Are you going to do your own walk? Because we've been walking through this desert, waiting for that water, for that oasis of change, of immigration reform, of policy for way too long. And I'm tired. Are you tired? Yeah. Will you join me and walk? Will you join me and go to Washington, D.C. March 21st? Yeah. Will you? Yeah. Will you be there on May 1st if we don't got it again? Yeah. Will you continue to fight this thing until we get our comprehensive immigration reform? Yeah. I'll be there with you.